prove a picture like that's authenticity, it is imperative. But if we're able to prove that we have a photograph.
Beyond mere clicks and flashes, the camera has given the new world a glimpse of the old by freezing moments in time.
And they realize this is a tremendous photograph.
Through the lens of skilled photographers, we have the privilege of gazing upon the faces and lives of historical personalities who have shaped the course of our world. Get ready to peep through the incredible window of time as we explore these amazing photos of historical personalities. Number 50. Kolo Nito. Let's kick this photo thing off with Kolo Nito, one of the most prolific writers and politicians of the 20th century. His works were widely accepted in the early 1900s, and he gained so much influence that his face made it to the country's postal stamp in 1964. Number 49. Franz Ferdinand. In this picture, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary poses with a beast he had hunted. He was said to have hunted over 300,000 animals in his lifetime. However, the picture would be taken shortly after the Archduke was hunted by an assassin, alongside with his wife who had rode with him. Number 48. Dom Pedro II. These pictures are proof that men of the old world had some style as well. Just take a look at how Dom Pedro II of Brazil posed with arms akimbo. But I guess it's hard to tell that it was Dom Pedro. The pictures that most people have in mind are of his old-looking gray-haired and full-bearded monarch. Number 47. Princess Isabel. Standing next to Dom Pedro in this family portrait is Princess Isabel of Brazil, the monarch's eldest daughter who later assumed the throne. Before she attained full monarchy, the princess was made regent on occasions of her father's absence, and this picture was taken during the oath-taking ceremony for her first regency in 1870. Number 46. Vincent van Gogh. This self-portrait is of Vincent van Gogh, the Dutch painter and one of the most influential figures in Western art. However, in 1888, he severed his ear with a razor, and after he bandaged the wound himself, he wrapped the ear in paper and sent it to a 17-year-old cleaner in a brothel that he frequented. And if you think that's crazy, he did that while suffering from a severe mental illness before he passed on. Number 45. Leonardo da Vinci. If you know the most famous painting in the world, and if you've ever seen this painting of Jesus' Last Supper, then you must be curious about the face behind those incredible works of art. That would be Leonardo da Vinci, the man whose statement-making art is still shaking the world long after he's been gone. Number 44. Friedrich Nietzsche. Next up, we see amazing photos of Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher, whose writings have exerted an enormous influence on Western philosophy. As his life moved to a close, he suffered from severe mental illness, and he's seen in the care of his sister Elizabeth. Number 43. Santos Dumont. The comfort of aircraft that we enjoy today is partly owed to the man in this picture. In the late 1800s, Santos Dumont was known for building and experimenting with several aircraft. One of his greatest feats was flying around the Eiffel Tower as seen in this photo. Number 42. Olavo Bilac. Here is a picture of Olavo Bilac, a Brazilian poet, journalist, and translator. He may not be a high-sounding man, he doesn't even look like one if you ask me, but knowing he's the brains behind the Brazilian flag anthem, I'm convinced that he is indeed a man of history. Number 41. Albert Einstein. Now, I'm sure those pictures may seem unfamiliar, but when we move the clock into the future, you'll be surprised to know that it was Albert Einstein. Being a member of the League of Nations between 1922 and 1932, Einstein is seen in a session with other mentions of the International Committee of the Intellectual Corporation. But aside from his great achievements in physics, it seems that Einstein also has a great knowledge of music, as he's seen sight playing a violin in this picture. And perhaps he has a sense of humor as well. Number 40. Thomas Edison. Every time you flip the switch and the light bulb comes on, you'll remember this man who spent years working and waiting for that to happen. In 1879, after several attempts, Thomas Edison succeeded in bringing his light bulb idea to life, and this is a picture of the first light bulb. And this 1880 picture shows the Menlo Park lab where Thomas Edison designed and invented most of his works. Number 39. Artur de Azevedo. Next up are the amazing photos of Artur de Azevedo, the famous and influential playwright, journalist, and poet. Azevedo was one of the high-profile writers of the 20th century, and he worked with the likes of some of the century's most prolific writers as well. Number 38. Machado de Assis. The man here is Machado de Assis, the greatest Brazilian novelist of all time and the founder of Brazilian Academy of Letters. However, as great as he was, his life was not a bed of roses. He suffered from epilepsy and sometimes fell into severe seizures in public. As we see in this picture, he's surrounded by people who had tried to calm him. Number 37. William Shakespeare. I think it would be right to say that English writer William Shakespeare is the most famous poet and playwright ever. He's well known by everyone, and even a toddler will not find this photo strange. Number 36. Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud is a neurologist and the founder of a special clinical method called psychoanalysis. In 1885, he traveled to Paris to study with a fellow neurologist, and this painting that Sigmund later placed in his consulting room is an illustration from that moment. Number 35. Winston Churchill. This 1941 portrait of the UK Prime Minister Winston Churchill was called the Roaring Lion, and his facial expression clearly explains it. He had that same fierce look in this photograph that was taken at the Siege of Sydney Street in 1911. However, the celebrity comedian Charlie Chaplin was able to spark a smile on his face in this picture. Number 34. Adolf Hitler. The man needs no introduction. He shook the world so much that generations have passed down horror stories about him. However, these pictures of him may change the narrative. I'm not sure if I can tell it's a photo shoot or some comedy show, but the picture where he's seen peeling an orange on a lonely picnic is an even bigger shocker. And to my greatest surprise, he takes a snooze as well. The greatest of them all is the comic picture where he puts on shorts and knee-length socks and poses with arms akimbo. I think I see the reasons why he tried to ban these pictures from the internet. Aren't they just so funny? What's more funny is he died long before the internet even existed. I don't write these things, I just speak them. Number 33. George V of the United Kingdom. Next up are beautiful pictures of George V of the United Kingdom. This 1917 cartoon of King George V looks like a shade to the Germans and sparks curiosity. Number 32. Queen Victoria. This beautiful 1859 portrait of Queen Victoria depicts the affluence and elegance of the royal family in the United Kingdom. In the picture, the news of Queen Victoria's ascension would be brought to her in the year 1837. Number 31. Queen Elizabeth II. In 1945, Queen Elizabeth II took this photo while she was in the Auxiliary Territorial Service, and it speaks humility and service. In one of the most popular pictures of the Queen in her old age, we see her with some members of the royal family. Number 30. Martin Luther. This is an official picture of Martin Luther King Jr., the famous politician and human rights activist. He was known for staging peaceful protests against racism, just as is seen in this picture. However, this activism put him in the government's bad books, and this picture would be taken by the police when he was arrested during a protest in Birmingham. Then, in 1963, this picture was taken when he gave his most famous speech, "I Have a Dream." Number 29. Yvonne and Alexander Sane Wittgenstein. In this popular picture, Yvonne seems to be gulping down a bottle of liquor while his brother holds a half-smoked cigarette. The picture was taken by their mother, who was a popular photographer of the time, and before you blame her for bad parenting, the moment you see the picture was staged, it sold for a very good price. Number 28. Virgilino Varela da Silva. This picture shows the 20th century bandit leader, popularly known as Lampião. He had a bad habit of reading the news, and in this picture he's seen holding a newspaper with a fat wrap of weed between his lips. Number 27. Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden shook the world with terror. Everyone knows who he is. This picture shows Osama walking with some of his disciples. Number 26. Bruce Lee. Next up are pictures of the action star Bruce Lee. This picture shows Bruce Lee in action in one of the most popular movies, Enter the Dragon. And the picture that may warm your heart the most is the one that he took with his son. Trust me, their smiles could melt a heart of stone. Number 25. Walt Disney. This is Walt Disney, the brain behind Mickey Mouse and other cartoons under his brand, and in this picture he seems to be reading a bedtime story to a Donald Duck doll. And here he poses for a picture with several copies of a stuffed Mickey Mouse. Perhaps he just has a thing for playing around with his creations, and he doesn't mind looking funny while he's doing it. All the hard work paid off when he won an Oscar in 1953. Number 24. Tsar Nicholas II. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, Tsar Nicholas II was the last emperor of Russia, the King of Poland, and the Duke of Finland. So much honor for one man, and you would think that until you saw these pictures where it looked like he forgot all about his honors. Number 23. Abraham Lincoln. One of the greatest American presidents of all time, and in a photo that was taken in 1846, he looks younger than most of the pictures that you've ever seen before. Number 22. George Washington. Unless you've been living under a rock, I'm sure you've heard of George Washington, the founding father and first president of America. This painting shows his last days on his deathbed, where he was surrounded by family. Number 21. Benjamin Franklin. This picture of a man with a wool cap and a round spectacle is Benjamin Franklin. But this looks more like Benjamin that we all know. Aside from writing and science, this image shows that Benjamin Franklin also worked as a painter at the time. Being an expert in the science of electricity, Benjamin is seen drawing electricity from the sky in these pictures, and it looks like magic. Number 20. Bill Clinton. This is a teenage picture of the former United States President Bill Clinton when he was in high school. In this picture, we also see the musical side of the former president as he's seen playing a saxophone. Number 19. Vladimir Lenin. This 1920 photograph captured Vladimir Lenin, a former chairman of the Soviet Union. In 1895, Vladimir would be arrested in Russia for sharing illegal revolutionary publications, and these would be his mugshots. As he grew older, his health began to decline, and he's seen in a wheelchair in this picture. And in his last photo before his death, he was said to have suffered from 3 strokes and had become mute at the time. Number 18. Franklin D. Roosevelt. This uncompleted portrait of Franklin Roosevelt would be drawn in 1945. While sitting for the painting, he had suffered a cerebral hemorrhage and died the next day. Number 17. Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon Bonaparte is another stylish man of the old world, and he's seen posing elegantly in these paintings. Number 16. Charles Darwin. Take a look at these pictures of the father of evolution, Charles Darwin. However, this cartoon of him is rather insulting. Shortly after he proved that humans evolved from apes, this image was drawn to depict him as an ape himself. Number 15. Isaac Newton. In this painting, we see another great scientist who contributed to the field of physics. This is a portrait of Isaac Newton, which would be drawn in 1689. Number 14. Charlie Chaplin. Though it may be rare, we see a portrait of Charlie Chaplin with his alter ego Little Tramp. And in a more surprising event, we see the comedian playing the cello. It's such a wonder, if you ask me. Number 13. Jimi Hendrix. Here we see one of the greatest electric guitarists of all time, Jimi Hendrix, performing in this picture. At the Monterey Pop Festival in 1967, Hendrix was so engrossed in his performance that he set his guitar ablaze and watched it burn. Number 12. Freddie Mercury. This portrait is of Freddie Mercury during a performance. The guy was so great that his statue's been erected in some key places, including the one we see in this picture. Number 11. Muhammad Ali. The name Muhammad Ali can never be erased from the history of boxing all over the world, and here we see the face of the man who has achieved great feats with his fists. Number 10. Pele. Just as Muhammad Ali is to boxing, so is Pele to football. And trust me, he's a name and a face that will be remembered through generations. In this picture, he's seen signing a football for the president. And here we have a picture of Pele in a wheelchair at the commissioning of his statue. Number 9. Karl Marx. In an old picture, we see the famous German philosopher and economist Karl Marx, who lived between 1818 and 1883. Number 8. Benito Mussolini. This picture shows Italian dictator Benito Mussolini. He would be arrested by the Bernese police in 1903 after advocating violence and was detained for 2 weeks before being deported. Mussolini also worked with Adolf Hitler to persecute Italian Jews amidst other villainous acts. Number 7. Ulysses S. Grant. Ulysses S. Grant was the 18th President of the United States, and here he's seen in a meeting with Abraham Lincoln and other peacemakers in 1868. In this photo, which he took shortly before his death, he's sitting in front of his house and is said to be writing his memoir. Number 6. Johann Sebastian Bach. This painting captured Johann Sebastian Bach, one of the greatest classical music composers in history. Number 5. Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi was one of the brave men who dared to stand up for the freedom of their people. However, it may seem as though Gandhi has a thing for moving with his bare chest, as he's seen without tops in most of his pictures. Number 4. Nikola Tesla. This is Nikola Tesla, and he's a major contributor to the field of electricity. He invented the transmission of alternate current, and in this picture, we see him sitting under an electric transmission. That looks terrific if you ask me. Number 3. Henry Ford. I'm sure that everyone knows Henry Ford, the brain behind the automobile brand that has lasted for decades. Number 2. Galileo. Galileo is another physicist whose works have spanned throughout the centuries. He's credited for inventing the telescope and the celestone, amongst other things. Number 1. The Wright brothers. These two geniuses are the Wright brothers, and they're the reason that we fly the world with ease today. Though other people tried before them, they created the first successful flying machine in history. These have been 50 amazing photos that have taken us back in time. Who's your favorite historical personality on this list? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below.